Emma never imagined her quiet home in Portland would change so suddenly. But the morning her sister Lily arrived with 2 suitcases and a tired smile, everything shifted in a way she couldn't name. Lily had just lost her apartment after a bad breakup and a series of unlucky weeks in Seattle. And although she tried to pretend she was fine, the strain showed in her eyes. Emma didn't hesitate to invite her in. She had always been the older sister who tried to fix things, and she hoped giving Lily a place to stay would help her rebuild. Daniel, Emma's husband, didn't question the decision either. He simply nodded, walked over, and carried Lily's bags inside with ease. His kindness wasn't new, but something about the way he looked at Lily gentle, understanding, almost protective made Emma pause for half a second before pushing the thought away. She reminded herself that Daniel was kind to everyone, especially family. Still, the air that morning carried a strange tension. It's the type that's too thin to touch but too real to ignore. From the start, Lily seemed determined not to burden anyone. She unpacked quickly, offered to help cook, cleaned the kitchen without being asked, and kept thanking both of them until Emma told her to stop. But even with all her efforts, Emma sensed that Lily was carrying something heavy, something she hadn't said out loud yet. Daniel noticed too. He wasn't nosy, but he watched Lily with concern, quietly studying her the way he did when he was trying to understand a problem he couldn't solve yet. He asked gentle questions, offered her the bigger blanket for her room, and made sure she had everything she needed to feel safe. Emma tried to convince herself this was normal hospitality. She didn't want to imagine anything else. She trusted her husband. She trusted her sister. She just wished her heart didn't sink every time she watched the 2 of them talk in the kitchen as if they had known each other longer than a few hours. The first night, they ate dinner together, nothing special, just pasta and garlic bread, but the conversation felt strangely emotional. Lily talked about losing her job, losing her apartment, feeling like her life had fallen apart too fast. Daniel listened with real focus, nodding thoughtfully, offering small bits of encouragement without making her feel judged. Emma wanted to comfort Lily too, but she found herself silent, watching their interaction with a mixture of sympathy and unease. She hated that feeling. She didn't want to be jealous. Jealousy didn't fit her personality, and she trusted Daniel more than anyone. But something in the room felt unbalanced, as if she were watching a movie where 2 characters connected too quickly while the 3rd character slipped quietly out of the frame. By the end of the week, the rhythm of the house had changed. Lily slept in the guest room, but she spent most of her time in the kitchen or the living room, trying to stay busy, trying not to be a shadow. Daniel worked from home most days, and because Emma had recently taken on longer hours at her office, Daniel and Lily naturally spent more time in the same spaces. When Emma walked in one afternoon and found Lily laughing at something Daniel said, really laughing, the kind of laugh she hadn't heard from her sister in years, it hit her unexpectedly. Not because the moment was inappropriate, but because it reminded her how fragile Lily was beneath her smile. It also reminded her that Daniel was the type of man who tried to help anyone who looked like they needed it. Emma admired that about him. But now, watching Lily's face soften in a way she only did when she felt truly safe, Emma wondered if she had unintentionally created a situation her heart wasn't ready for. Still, Emma tried to stay rational. She wasn't someone who jumped to conclusions. She knew Daniel loved her deeply. She knew Lily wouldn't cross boundaries. So she pushed away the uncomfortable feeling again, choosing to believe the house was simply adjusting to a temporary change. But things kept happening, small, fast, and unsettling. One evening, Emma got home early and found Daniel helping Lily set up her computer in the dining room. Their heads were close, not in a romantic way, but in a way that suggested familiarity had grown without her noticing. Another day, she overheard them sharing old music playlists, discovering they both loved the same indie bands Emma didn't care for. None of it meant anything on its own, but together, it created a quiet ache inside her. A whisper telling her something wasn't right. The moment that stayed with her. however, came 2 weeks after Lily moved in. Emma walked into the kitchen expecting to see Daniel making coffee, like he always did. Instead, she found Daniel and Lily standing near the window. Lily looked tired, almost shaken, and Daniel stood close enough to give comfort without touching her. He spoke softly, a tone he usually saved for moments when Emma was overwhelmed. Emma froze, unseen for a second, watching them. Lily's shoulders trembled slightly, and Daniel nodded gently, telling her something Emma couldn't hear but could feel, something patient, something steady, something that made Lily's expression break between relief and sadness. When they finally noticed Emma, both stepped back a little. Lily quickly wiped her eyes and said she just needed some fresh air. Daniel gave Emma a small, careful smile. The kind people offer when they know you're about to ask a question they aren't ready to answer. Emma didn't ask, she only nodded, though her heart thudded hard in her chest. That night, she lay awake, next to Daniel, trying to make sense of everything. She didn't believe anything inappropriate was happening, but she couldn't ignore how deeply Daniel seemed to care about Lily's feelings. She couldn't ignore the way Lily looked at him, like he was the first person who had made her feel safe in months. And she couldn't ignore the fear growing inside Hertha. Fear that something was changing in her home, something she didn't understand yet. She reminded herself again that Daniel had done nothing wrong. Lily had done nothing wrong. But that didn't stop the worry from spreading. And as Emma drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought kept echoing in her mind: something had shifted, something she hadn't expected, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. She didn't know what Daniel had said to Lily that morning, or why Lily's eyes were filled with both pain and hope. But she knew one thing for certain: life in their house was no longer simple. And she was about to find out exactly why. Emma woke up that morning feeling the weight of the previous weeks more than she wanted to admit. Lily had settled in faster than Emma expected, and the house already felt different, filled with soft laughter, shared meals, and conversations that seemed to flow too easily between her husband and her sister. Daniel was busy at his home office, typing away, yet he frequently glanced up to check on Lily, who sat at the kitchen table with her notebook, working on her job applications. Emma poured herself a cup of coffee and tried to shake off the unease, telling herself that what she was feeling was just temporary. She had always been protective of Lily. But this was different, like watching someone she loved lean on a stranger who knew her too well. Throughout the day, the little things kept catching her attention. Daniel would ask Lily about her resume, and she would respond with soft, earnest words, her voice carrying a tone Emma rarely heard. They seemed to understand each other in a way that left Emma standing at the doorway, feeling like an intruder in her own home, though she had invited them both in. It wasn't flirtation or anything inappropriate. It was simply a connection that made Emma feel a little invisible, a little unsure of her place in the moment. By mid-afternoon, Emma was sitting on the couch trying to focus on her work emails, but the sounds from the kitchen distracted her. She could hear Daniel and Lily laughing at something she hadn't even noticed. A small joke about a childhood memory, a book they both loved, and suddenly the room felt warmer, brighter, like it belonged to them alone. She reminded herself again that Daniel had never given her a reason to doubt him, and that Lily was family, her sister who had just suffered a hard season in life. Still, the ache in her chest grew, a quiet, insistent feeling that she couldn't ignore. Emma wondered if this was the type of jealousy she had always scoffed at, the kind that came not from suspicion but from fear of losing someone to an emotional closeness she couldn't touch. She tried to smile when Daniel looked at her, giving her a small, reassuring nod. And yet the glance he gave Lily moments later made her stomach twist in a way she couldn't explain. Dinner that night was calm on the surface, but the tension underneath was like a current running through the room. Lily tried to help by chopping vegetables, humming softly, and Daniel offered gentle suggestions. correcting her knife technique with a patience Emma had never seen him reserve for anyone but herself. Emma forced herself to laugh at a comment Lily made about a show she had loved as a teenager, but inside, a storm of questions and emotions churned. Why did Daniel's attention seem so fully present for Lily, yet so easy and natural? Why did Lily's smile light up in ways that Emma hadn't seen in years? Emma wanted to believe this was all harmless, yet her mind spun faster than her heart could calm, trying to find some balance between trust and instinctive worry. After dinner, she went to the living room under the pretense of doing laundry, but ended up just sitting on the sofa, watching as Daniel offered Lily his jacket because the night air was cold. His hand brushed hers as he passed it, just barely, and Lily's eyes lit up with surprise and relief. Emma froze, catching her breath. The tension in Emma's home had been growing quietly for weeks. And even though she tried to ignore it, she could no longer pretend that everything was simple. The way Daniel and Lily interacted, the way he seemed to instinctively know what she needed, the way Lily's eyes softened around him, it all left Emma with a swirl of emotions she hadn't expected. It wasn't jealousy in the usual sense. It wasn't anger or suspicion, but something more subtle and confusing. A mixture of worry, protectiveness, and longing for reassurance. Daniel noticed the change in Emma, too. He could sense her withdrawing slightly, her eyes lingering just a little too long when she glanced at him. The quiet pause before she spoke, the small sighs she tried to hide. One Saturday morning, while the sunlight spilled into the kitchen, Daniel suggested they sit down and talk, and Emma felt a flutter of nerves. She didn't know what to expect, whether it would be a difficult confrontation or a gentle reassurance. But she followed him to the dining table anyway, heart beating faster than usual. He poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to her, and waited until she was seated before speaking, his expression calm but serious. "Emma," he said softly, "I know something's been bothering you." His voice wasn't accusatory. It was careful, like he was holding a fragile object he didn't want to break. Emma tried to keep her face neutral, sipping her coffee, but her mind raced. "What do you mean?" she asked, though she already knew. He leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on the table, and continued. "I see how you've been looking at me and Lily. I can tell it's making you uncomfortable, and I want you to know why." Emma's chest tightened. She didn't want to overreact. She didn't want to make a scene. But hearing him acknowledge it made her feel exposed in a way she hadn't expected. "Go on," she whispered, leaning in, her hands wrapped around the cup. Daniel took a breath, his eyes softening. "I want you to understand that I'm not pulling away from you. I've never pulled away from you, and I never will. What I have with Lily isn't about desire or anything like that. She reminds me of someone I once was, someone who needed guidance and support. And I feel it's my responsibility to help her through this difficult time." Emma blinked, a mixture of relief and confusion washing over her. What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel explained that years ago, before they met, he had gone through a very rough patch in life. He had lost his first job, his apartment, and almost everything he owned. During that time, someone had offered him kindness without asking for anything in return. Someone who had helped him stand back up. It wasn't romantic. It was human. It was life-saving, and it had shaped who he became. Now, helping Lily reminded him of that experience. He wasn't attracted to her. He wasn't seeking attention or comfort. He was simply doing what he knew to be right, being there for someone who needed a steady hand, the same way someone had done for him long ago. Emma felt her throat tighten. The words made sense, and logically, she understood. But her heart had been watching these two people so closely, had been interpreting every gesture, every laugh, every soft glance, in ways that had twisted her stomach with uncertainty. "I didn't know. I didn't realize it was like that," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. Daniel reached across the table and held her hand gently, giving her a small smile. "I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want my past to cast a shadow over us. I wanted you to see me as your Daniel, not the man who had struggles before we met. But I see now that keeping it from you only caused doubt. and that's the last thing I want between us." Emma's eyes blurred with tears, not from anger, but from relief, from the ache of finally understanding, from the sudden clarity that her husband wasn't doing anything to hurt her or Lily. She wanted to reach across the table and hug him, to feel the warmth of his presence settle the anxiety she had been carrying for weeks. But before she could move, they both heard a quiet shuffle from the hallway. Lily appeared, her eyes wide, slightly red from earlier tears, her expression tentative. She had heard at least part of the conversation and had stopped to listen, unsure of what to do. Emma's heart sank for a second. She didn't want any misunderstandings. Lily took a small step forward, her voice soft and shaky. "I heard some of that," she admitted, "and I need to say something." Emma held her breath, bracing for an awkward confession, for words that might make everything worse. But Lily shook her head quickly. "I'm not here to come between you two. I never wanted that, and I never want to. Daniel has been. Nothing but kind. He's helped me because he cares, not because he wants anything more. I've never wanted to disrupt your marriage or your life."
Oh.
Emma felt her shoulders loosen in a mix of relief and lingering tension. She looked at Lily, seeing not just her sister, but someone fragile, someone grateful, someone who had simply needed support. The moment was emotional, raw in its simplicity. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Emma took a step forward and pulled Lily into a hug, holding her tightly while realizing that their bond had not been weakened but tested in a way that revealed resilience and understanding. After that conversation, the atmosphere in the house subtly shifted. The tension that had been building quietly began to ease, replaced by a new sense of clarity. Emma realized that Daniel's kindness was not a threat. It was a reflection of his strength and his capacity to love and support those he cared about. She also understood that Lily's presence, which had initially made her uneasy, could be a positive influence, a chance for her sister to grow, to heal, and to find confidence again. Over the next few days, the house felt lighter. Daniel was more relaxed, Emma more patient with herself, and Lily more comfortable in her own skin. Emma noticed that the way she watched Daniel no longer carried a pang of fear, but instead a quiet appreciation for the depth of his heart and the steadiness of his love. She realized that this experience had taught her something valuable, that love could be expansive, that it could include patience, understanding, and support without diminishing the bond between two people. Emma also noticed subtle changes in Lily. She smiled more often, moved with less hesitation, and began making plans to rebuild her life. Daniel guided her gently without hovering, offering advice when needed, but allowing her space to grow independently. Emma observed this, feeling pride for her sister and gratitude for her husband, understanding fully that the delicate balance in their home required trust, communication, and emotional honesty. One afternoon, Emma and Daniel sat together in the living room while Lily organized her applications for a new job. Emma leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in weeks. She realized that the storm she had feared never truly existed. It had been the tension of uncertainty and misunderstanding, now replaced by clarity, openness, and shared compassion. Lily's gratitude toward both of them was tangible, and Emma felt her protective instincts soften, replaced by love that was patient and accepting. By the end of that week, Emma understood that the lesson had been about more than Daniel and Lily. It had been about trust, communication, and allowing herself to see the truth beneath her insecurities. She no longer feared Daniel's care for her sister. She welcomed it, knowing it was part of his generous heart, the same heart that had drawn her to him in the first place. Lily's acknowledgement of boundaries, Daniel's reassurance, and Emma's willingness to confront her feelings had created a fragile but strong new dynamic, one that could endure challenges without breaking. As the sun set over their Portland neighborhood, Emma watched Daniel laugh with Lily over a minor kitchen disaster and felt no sting, only understanding and affection. She realized that love in its truest form was about honesty, patience, and the courage to face discomfort without fear. That Saturday, as the three of them settled into an evening of quiet companionship, Emma finally felt the peace she had been longing for, a peace that promised growth, healing, and the continuation of love in all its complex, human forms. Emma woke up that morning with a strange sense of calm, a feeling she hadn't experienced in weeks. The tension that had hung over the house since Lily moved in seemed to have softened overnight. Lily was quietly making breakfast in the kitchen, humming softly to herself. And Daniel was sitting at the table, reviewing his work emails while occasionally glancing at her with a gentle smile. Emma watched them for a moment, noticing how natural everything looked now. The ease in their movements, the quiet understanding between them. It was still different from the way it had been before Lily arrived, but it no longer felt threatening. Instead, it felt like a temporary shift in their lives, a pause that had allowed each of them to see what truly mattered. Emma poured herself a cup of coffee and joined Daniel at the table, feeling a warm sense of belonging as he reached across to hold her hand, his eyes meeting hers with reassurance. She realized then that what had scared her the most wasn't Lily, and it wasn't Daniel's kindness. It was her own fear of losing control over the emotions in her home, over the love she shared with both her husband and her sister. Later that morning, Lily hesitated in the doorway, holding a small envelope in her hands, looking nervous in a way Emma hadn't seen before. Emma's curiosity piqued, and Daniel tilted his head slightly, sensing that something important was about to be said. Lily took a deep breath and stepped closer, placing the envelope on the table. "I need to tell you both something," she said softly, her voice trembling just enough to show the weight of her words. Emma's heart quickened, a mix of worry and anticipation coursing through her, while Daniel remained calm, giving Lily the space to speak. Lily looked at Emma first, her eyes filled with gratitude and a little fear. "I want you to know that I've never meant to cause any problems between you and Daniel. I've only wanted to get back on my feet, and your home has been the kindest refuge I could have asked for." She paused, glancing at Daniel. "And Daniel, thank you for helping me, for being patient with me, and for treating me like a person who matters. That's all I've ever wanted. I'm leaving soon to start my own life, but I wanted to say this before I go, so there's no confusion." Emma felt a rush of relief flood through her. The nervous tightness in her chest began to loosen, replaced by warmth and understanding. She reached across and took Lily's hands in hers, giving a small squeeze. "Lily, you could never be a burden to us," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You've been brave, and I'm proud of you. We just want you to be happy and safe." Lily's smile was fragile but genuine, and for the first time since she had moved in, Emma saw her sister's face unguarded, free from the fear and sadness she had carried for months. Daniel nodded, adding his own reassurance, and the three of them sat together for a few minutes, simply sharing the quiet comfort of understanding. Emma noticed that this moment didn't feel tense. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt real, honest, and healing, a culmination of all the emotional growth they had experienced together in the last few weeks. In the days that followed, Lily began preparing for her move into a small apartment downtown. Emma and Daniel helped her pack, laughing together at small memories tucked into boxes, sharing quiet conversations about hopes and plans for the future. The house felt lighter, freer, without the constant emotional undertow that had made every glance and interaction feel loaded. Emma discovered that she could enjoy watching Daniel care for someone without feeling threatened, understanding that his kindness was an extension of the love he shared with her, not a replacement for it. She also realized that Lily's presence had strengthened her relationship with both of them, creating a bond of trust and honesty that had been tested and proven resilient. Even the small gestures, the way Daniel checked on Lily without hovering, the way Lily expressed her gratitude without overstepping boundaries, reminded Emma of the delicate balance that love and family required, a balance that she and Daniel could maintain with openness and communication. One evening, after Lily had finished moving most of her things into her new apartment, Emma and Daniel returned home together. The house felt empty but peaceful, the quiet absence of Lily's presence making room for reflection. Emma felt a rush of affection for Daniel as she noticed the way he relaxed now, shoulders loose, a genuine smile spreading across his face. She realized that the anxiety she had carried for weeks had been replaced by a deeper understanding of his heart, his intentions, and the strength of their love. Sitting on the couch together, Emma leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder as they both sipped tea in comfortable silence. Daniel's hand found hers again, squeezing gently, and Emma felt a calm certainty wash over her. The experience with Lily had tested her emotions, her trust, and her understanding of love. But it had also proven that their bond could withstand challenges, uncertainty, and fear without breaking. Over the next few weeks, Lily's new life began to take shape. She called often, sharing updates about her new job, new apartment, and small triumphs that Emma and Daniel celebrated with genuine joy. The sisters' relationship grew stronger, not because they had lived under the same roof, but because they had navigated difficult emotions together and come out with respect, understanding, and love intact. Emma felt proud of both Lily and herself, recognizing that the closeness she had feared losing had, in fact, deepened through honesty and patience. She noticed that Daniel's love was steady and unwavering, not diminished by his support for Lily, but enhanced by it, a demonstration of the kind of man he was, caring, strong, and generous. One quiet evening, as the three of them shared a brief visit at Lily's apartment before she returned home for the night, Emma realized something important. The events of the past month had not threatened their love, but had strengthened it. She watched Daniel interact with Lily, noting the kindness in his eyes and the gentle way he encouraged her independence, and felt a surge of gratitude. Lily smiled at her sister and brother, grateful and confident, and Emma felt a sense of completion, knowing that the family had found a new balance. She realized that love wasn't just about passion or closeness, it was about trust, patience, and the courage to face uncomfortable feelings without letting them fester. As the days passed, life returned to its quiet rhythm in the Portland home. Emma and Daniel spent evenings together, sometimes alone, sometimes with Lily visiting, but always with a sense of ease and understanding. Emma discovered that her love for Daniel had deepened, strengthened by the clarity she had gained, and her bond with Lily had grown more honest, built on trust and mutual respect rather than dependence or fear. One night, after putting away the dishes and settling into their living room, Daniel pulled Emma close and whispered, "I helped her because I love you, not in spite of it." Felt tears prick at her eyes, not from sadness, but from the beauty of that truth, the quiet certainty that their love was unshakable. She leaned into him, holding him tightly, understanding that what they had endured together had been more than a challenge. It had been a lesson in empathy, patience, and the kind of love that could endure anything. Emma realized then that she hadn't almost lost her husband, and Lily hadn't disrupted their lives in a way that mattered. Instead, they had all learned to navigate the delicate layers of human emotion, to care deeply without fear, and to trust the heart of someone they loved. In the stillness of that evening, as the city lights twinkled outside their window, Emma understood the simple, profound truth. Love wasn't fragile, it wasn't conditional, and it didn't shrink in the face of kindness and support. It expanded, it endured, and it strengthened the bonds between those who were brave enough to face it honestly. She held Daniel's hand, feeling the warmth, security, and depth of their connection, and smiled, knowing that their life together had emerged stronger, wiser, and more tender than ever before. It was a quiet victory, a soft but powerful conclusion to a chapter of uncertainty, and a promise that their love, tested and true, would carry them forward through any storm, any challenge, and any unexpected twist life might bring.